All right, here we are, folks. Welcome to Dynamic Dialogues Masterclass. My name is Lindon Crow. I am the president of Productive Learning. I am in the business of supporting executives, business owners, individuals to create their version of an extraordinary life. I personally coach 34 business executives and owners on a monthly basis, where I get to learn about the inner workings of many different industries, many different size businesses. But what I find more interesting, maybe, and what I believe is even more important, is I get to learn about the minds and hearts of very high achievers. With that, I get to do my own self-reflection to learn how I show up with my wife, Cassie, who many of you know, and like we talked about earlier, my very spirited and strong-willed daughter, Grace, and my own team here at Productive Learning. So last masterclass, which was called Mirror Mirror, if you haven't checked it out, shoot me an email and let me know, and I'll get you set up with that. The last masterclass, we talked about how the quality of our relationships establishes the quality of the life that we have, and the quality of our communication has a direct effect on the quality of the relationships we have. So the quality of the communication creates the quality of the relationships. The quality of the relationships creates the quality of our life. It's hard to argue that point, maybe only to what degree that influences, but boy, oh boy, our communication, our relationships, and the overall quality of our lives are intimately connected. The difference in this masterclass is I want to get into when things are heated. So what does that look like? I'm talking high stakes, high emotions, differing of opinions, because when all that happens, it gets super heated, folks, okay? That's what we're talking about today. Now, in order to accomplish the greatest of achievements, whether that is deep, loving intimacy with your partner or staggering double or triple digit growth with your team and company, we need to, oh, here's the strong-willed daughter. You guys want to come see the strong-willed daughter? Here she is. Are you going to come say hi? Go say hi. You want to show them stuff? Cool. Here she is. They're over here. Want to say hi? Right here. What did you get? Got some glittery markers and stickers. Dude, you nailed it today. All right.
But I also got this. This is baby shark.
You got baby shark stuff? Dude, cool. All right, let me go play with you after I'm done talking with these 22 people and whoever else wants to listen to this recording of a cute little girl, but has nothing to do with communication. So back to working from home. Okay. In order to accomplish the greatest of achievements, whether that is your intimate relationship or that is at work or anything else, we need to have healthy disagreements. If we don't, we can have what will happen become a whole boatload of different psychological effects: groupthink, confirmation bias, echo chamber effects, authority bias, fundamental attribution error, you name it. All of that stuff starts to go on. And when that goes on because people are unwilling to have arguments, what happens is same freaking thing, folks. Chaos ensues. So let's not do that, which begs the question, how do we not find ourselves in any of these pitfalls? A little bit more education. We're going to get to you all individually momentarily, but we got to get through some education portion of it, okay? Over the years, Productive Learning has written many different workshops dealing with communication, whether that's leadership communication when we do corporate trainings and executive coaching, maybe it's in our couples relationships and couples workshops, or just general developing your ability through how to communicate and relate to your world. One workshop that we've done in multiple different formats, whether that was a year-long or a 3-day retreat or online course, is called Path of Dialogue. And we continue to use and reference an exceptional book on communication, which is called crucial conversations. Some of you probably see it referenced here already. Shout out to all those people. One of the many simple but powerful takeaways from this book is that in order to keep dialogues healthy, even when a lot is at stake and emotions are high, is we need to have mutual purpose, which is the shared goal or objective that all parties in a conversation are committed to achieving. What that does is it ensures that everyone feels their interests and concerns are acknowledged and respected. Okay, once you have a mutual purpose, or in order to get a mutual purpose, we'll talk about that in a minute, we need to also have mutual respect. What is that? Simply recognizing and valuing each person's inherent worth and perspectives, which ensures that everyone feels acknowledged and respected throughout the conversation. Okay, now, mutual purpose, I believe people overlook this because it seems too simplistic, when in reality, it is the reason that needs to be established, because that is why you are there in the first place. There is work to be done with defining this in each situation, in each context. And I believe that if you allow yourself a true moment of reflection, that answer will come to you, and one where you can either bring it to or work with the other party to clarify. So that's mutual purpose. Okay? With me, everybody? Nods of heads. Yes. Yes. Good. Now, that all said, I do not think any of that simple process can be kept while in the heated conversation, let alone in the creation of it, if you as an individual cannot find and maintain respect for yourself and respect for the opposing party. That's mutual respect, right? Now, mutual respect, let's define that. It's comprised of two different things. One, respecting yourself, and two, respecting the other, okay? Both of them have to go on in a reciprocal fashion, back and forth. I think you're valuable. You think I bring value. I think what I bring is valuable. I think what you bring is valuable, on and on, ongoing. Okay? Now, if we are going to have a feeling of mutual respect, I have a belief that most of us have some semblance of respect for ourselves. Why? You wouldn't be on a self-growth masterclass if you didn't, right? You wouldn't think highly enough to even have yourself learn. And you also have some semblance of respect for others. Again, why do I know that? Because you wouldn't be on a self-growth masterclass if you didn't. So the question is not, do you? The question is, when stakes are high and emotions are flowing and things are getting hairy, which do you lose first? Your respect for yourself or your respect for the other person? Here's how we're going to find out. I want you to think of a situation where you had to stand up for your beliefs. Maybe this was the coworker when you thought about a sales promotion or a different path to take between you and the other person, and there was tension. Maybe this was with your spouse or your partner. It could have been a seemingly simple or innocent thing like, what do we have for dinner? Or maybe it was the ongoing challenge of having different ideas of frequency of sex. The question is, look back at the situation where that argument or disagreement happened and you had a belief about how something should go, and it differed from the other person, and ask yourself, did you lose respect for yourself first? Or did your respect for them drop first? Think about that for a moment. Was it respect for yourself? Or was it respect for the other? Here's something to consider. If you're not sure, what you could think of is, if you saw them and their ideas as dumb or silly or not right, you lost respect for them. If you thought you knew the way to do it was best and you felt like you kept needing to explain it to them, you lost respect for them. If you walked away thinking they just don't get it, they mess up all the time, they can't see how they're causing this whole thing. If they would only fill in the blank, you lost respect for them. Now, on the other hand, if you agreed just to avoid conflict, you lost respect for yourself. If you went in with an idea of what your boundary was, but then it got crossed, maybe even multiple times, you lost respect for yourself. If you walked out of the conversation blaming yourself for the conflict overall, you lost respect for yourself. If you didn't explain your thoughts or beliefs, you just let them do all the explaining, you lost respect for yourself. Okay, so which one were you? We probably falter to one or the other more often than not. Which one do you falter to? So go back to your last agreement and think. And pull up my screen so I can see you guys. By show of hands, who loses their respect for themselves more often or first, as opposed to the respect for the others? Got 3 or 4, got 4 or 5. These are the insecure people. So their hands are going up a little bit slower. They're making sure that other people are with them. Totally makes sense, which I think we got to about halfway. I think we got about half. Now, on the other show of hands, who loses respect for the other person first or more often? These are the more confident people. They're like, yeah, they're a freaking idiot. They were wrong. Yep, got it. Fantastic. Okay, so everybody sees themselves in one. Now, do we do both? Of course. Do you have a predisposition because you have a general mindset that walks into conversations, especially when triggered? Yes. And so that's what I want to pay attention to, right? Now, let me talk to those that don't like themselves. I got to be careful with this crew because I could be bold and direct and I can make you feel offended or defensive. That is not my intent. My intent is to make light of this, okay? So the people that raise their hands first, listen to this. Though we walk into this world with a genetic predispositions, thank you, mom and dad, we also come in with a base human instinct of contentment. You can see this in infants. When you take out any of their physiological irritations like hunger or temperature or body discomfort, they are naturally content. They are avid explorers. They're interested, engaging in life and learning. Okay, what this tells us is that along the way, you learned that who you were as a person was something less than the beautiful, naturally exceptional, and the marvel that you are. Was that because the way that your dad came home from work and treated you? Was that because your siblings started taking away the attention from you or from your mom? Was that because people outside of your family put you through unnecessary suffering and there was no one that helped you see the bigger picture and how you were at the unfortunate whip's end? I say this deliberately. These learned self-beliefs need to be dismantled, reassembled, and integrated back into the mature, wonderful person you are today if you want to achieve your version of extraordinary. Simply put, you want to do that work, you get yourself into coaching retreats, year-longs, whatever it is, dig in, people. You've got to dig up the foundation of what you believe about yourself because everything you've built is upon that and it is unstable. I'll take it out of the metaphor. What that means is that you lack a simple yet core belief of full self-worth and full self-respect. I agree with Marianne Williamson in her quote, "There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone." So give a moment of reflection on that. I don't accept that you are small or that you are incapable. I only accept that you believe you are. And to that, I see choice. And that is the greatest gift consciousness has given us, choice. Okay? Now, those of you that I was just speaking to, watch what I'm going to do. You'll see how there is no one that is more or less worth than you. Next part, next group. To all of you that think the other is the problem, I'm right there with you. I fall into this category. And let me do some Emerald Lagasse bam in your face. Okay. So I do a lot of reading on psychology, emotional and mental well-being, and I've been studying this in depth for 18 years. And I tell you that because the evidence for what I'm about to say is pretty clear. The interdependence of respect for others comes directly out of the individual's respect for, can you name it? Respect for oneself. There is a direct correlation that if you cannot find respect for someone else, that is because the foundation of that respect is the respect for one's self. And if you want the 13 studies that I went down a deep rabbit hole to find that, I can send those to you. But in short, when you respect yourself, your defenses go down. You see no reason to think the other person is to blame. When you respect yourself, you create more ability to engage your empathy and understand the other person for who they are. When you respect yourself, the more you have, the more compassion you create for yourself. So when you do cause an error and you do see that there could be something done better, you look at it to readdress and to learn from the situation instead of ruminating on it. So, do you follow? Now that we see that in order to achieve great things, whether that's intimacy in relationships, major growth in business, or something else, we need to have healthy disagreements. In order to do that, we need to create mutual purpose, and more importantly, mutual respect. And what was just concluded from doing a bit of soul searching is that in order to have mutual respect, we need to first and foremost find and maintain respect for ourselves, to which everyone is subject to faltering on. So now what do? Let's go back to that situation you recalled that was high stakes, high emotions, differing opinions, the argument, right? What I want you to do is write out, if you got something to write on, or if you don't have something to write on, churn it over in your brain. I want to know the when and the what. When did you lose respect for yourself or the other? Was it before you walked in? Were you already geared up for battle? Was it when you walked in and you saw something? Maybe it was a look on their face. Maybe you didn't expect somebody to be there. Maybe there was a question or thought that formulated in your mind during the conversation and all of a sudden everything turned. You may have to look what was going on before the engagement. When did you get triggered? Write that down. And secondly, what? What were you protecting? What became so important to you that you lost self-respect? Boundaries were crossed. They became an enemy. They became the idiot. What were you prioritizing instead of the mutual purpose? So I want you to think the last argument. When did it go off? And what were you protecting? Take a minute, and then we're going to do some sharing. All right. People got some stuff written down? So I see one. Natalie Alvarez. What do you got? What do you see?
Yeah, I have a lot of conflict with one of my sisters sometimes. So, and it is a battle of the wills, I will say. So the stakes were high because it was my mom's 85th birthday and she wasn't feeling well. So we had a difference.
Mom wasn't?
Mom wasn't. Yeah. So we had a difference of opinion of, to have a little celebration for her or not. So she tends to have a lot of anxiety, my mom does. And so my sister was in disagreement as to if my mother would be able to have any kind of celebration or luncheon for her 85th birthday. She felt she wouldn't, I felt she would. And I didn't want my mother's 85th birthday to go by without me celebrating her. And not to mention, she lives in Texas and I was in Texas and I don't get to see her that often.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
So when Was there already tension? Well, actually, let me ask you, did you answer the questions of the when and the what? What did you come up with?
Yes, so that was just kind of teeing it up. So I have three sisters, so it's four of us voting. So we made a vote of whether to do this or not. And it was 3-1. And sometimes she tends to have her will really try to be opposed on us. And I tried to call her and talk to her and say, like, what are you opposed about? Can we talk about this? And I lost respect for her when she went into the group chat and was like, well, my opinion doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to do. You know, she was jumping on the sword, and it just made me upset. And as you can tell, I still feel like the loss of respect for her at that moment to be the martyr of it all.
So you saw her as a companion, as a partner, as a supporter in mom's birthday until she said, my opinion doesn't matter, and she turned herself into a martyr.
Well, yes, because I had started to try to have a conversation with her of, hey, what's your objection? What's your worry? How can how can we talk about this?
And you felt clean and good and genuinely, earnestly curious when you were having that part of the conversation.
Yes, and I did tell her, like, hey, I'm really just trying to understand. And I guess I felt betrayed at that point because she tried to explain it to me, and I said, okay, well, I'll be honest, I really don't try to, I really don't understand yet, but I'm trying to get there. And so I kept on trying to talk to her, but I think sometimes she has a hard time explaining her own feelings, and so she just, was like saying the same thing over and over again.
So Natalia, so how did you come to feel betrayed?
Because she was kind of okay with me on the phone, and then after she was not, afterwards she just texted everybody saying, forget it, just do what you want to do. And I'm like, wait, we were in the middle of talking about it, trying to understand each other, trying to see, if
And
we
at
could
what
come to
and
an
at what
agreement.
and what would be wrong if we did just forget it and did what she said? Just do what you're going to do, since that was the vote 3-1. Why
Well,
was that? Why was that an upset to you?
Well, because it did happen, and she didn't show up, and my mother did notice, and my mother was very stressed out about the fact that, so my mom already has anxiety issues, and then that she didn't show up, my mom really did feel the impact of it. And that was an upset to me to see my mom
Okay, got
impacted.
it. So you are a culprit of feeling like you are responsible for everyone's feelings.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, I'll tell you what. No, I'll tell you what it was. It was my own feelings, like how you were saying, like I feel about myself.
Yeah.
The reason why I felt threatened because I had my own idea that was threatened of what a lovely time it could be for my mother to celebrate her, to, you know, have something nice for her, and two, because I missed so many times with her. And
So,
that hurts me.
okay, so this is great. This is great
Mm-hmm.
because you're using pretty strong words. Betrayal, you were
Mm-hmm.
feeling threatened by your idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I hear is two things. One is one we already stated, that there is a part of you that believes you are responsible for the well-being and emotional stability of other people. And at that, I would say, good God, you've got the weight of Atlas's world on your shoulders. We're going to have to slowly start to pull those pounds of weight off of your shoulders because that is too much of a burden for anybody, Natalia. That is way too much of a burden.
Sure.
Now, in order to do that, we have to understand which is where I think you were going, is why do you make it your responsibility? Why do you make other people's emotional and mental well-being your responsibility? So if anybody else is similar to Natalia, where, oh, when they got upset, that's when I got off. When it didn't go according to their plan, that's when they got off. This is a similar message to you. So we've got to start to untangle the why is it your responsibility why are you responsible for other people's mental and emotional states? How did you come to learn? We're going to do a quick little fast track question, see if you can do your little productive learning pop quiz. Where did you learn along the way that you were responsible for other people? Because it meant something about your own safety, security, well-being.
Good question. Um, I will say when I was younger, it was always about protection. I was always protecting myself. And I think if others were angry, it just meant I wasn't safe.
And was that physically safe, emotionally safe?
It was more emotional, but it felt like it was going to be physical, but it was emotional,
Okay.
safe. There was
So
no safety.
perfect. So you have not perfect, like wonderful, great. I'm glad that you.
Oh, thank you,
No,
Linda. Thank you.
perfect that you're making a connection that says, I grew up in an environment where I learned that if the other people weren't calm, safe, okay, happy, neutral,
Mhm.
I was at risk.
Yes.
And so therefore, an innocent and earnest strategy would be to make everybody else okay. Because once everybody else is okay, then I'll be okay.
Yes.
So my wife is similar. She became the entertainer of the family. If mom and dad were upset or brother was upset, she went and did a little song and dance, made people laugh, and then all of a sudden they're okay, and now there's no heat on her, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Now, you fast forward that a few decades, and all of a sudden, everybody else in the world has to be okay before one can calm down, right?
Yes.
So your dismantling is going to be to separate what makes you okay. Hint, hint, it has nothing to do with anybody else.
Right. It's always internal. Right.
Okay. So
Right.
that's going to be part of what your work is how do we make that theoretical concept an actuality for you? Okay. Make sense? Great. Okay.
Yes.
You keep that one there. Fantastic. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Peggy, unmute yourself.
I'm similar to Natalia. I definitely see that. But it's kind of I do a dance. So sometimes I back off, and more recently I'm more forward. And then it's trying to figure out, the mutual purpose, make it safe so they talk. And then if you get nothing, I don't know how to get past that.
So then you get off when you're saying when nothing comes back.
Right. Nick tends to be the one I literally feel a door. I physically feel the door when he shuts it and is no longer listening.
And then where do you go when that happens? Anybody else have I just can't get something out of the other person. They just won't move. They won't budge, or they'll go stonewall. Okay. Similar situation. Okay. Great. So Peggy, you're going to be the example for Katie, right? I saw her nod her head. Okay. So what happens, Katie? What happens, Peggy, when they go, whatever it is, blank, quiet, stonewall, whatever it is? What happens to you internally? Do you say, got it? They put up a bigger barrier, time to get a bigger gun. Let's see if we can attack this thing and break down the wall by brute force. Or do you say, fuck it, I'm gone, I'm out, nothing I can do, and you go retreat?
I would say I had been doing both of those.
Oh, very nice.
Because one wasn't working, so then I tried.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to bring more compassion, that there's something on that side that I don't understand.
Beautiful.
Or they're not safe or whatever. And so I'm really trying to figure out where I can still be honoring myself and honoring them.
Okay, great. I love that. I mean, you've said the textbook perfect answer.
Right.
So then my question for you is, how did you come to understand that you need to start to focus? And that moment when they seem to be the problem, their walls are going up, you either are getting a bigger gun or you're saying, poor me, and I'm retreating. You instead don't do both of those things. There you go. You instead don't do both of those things. You instead decide to, how do I continue to be more compassionate towards myself? How did you come to make that shift? And this is what I want the other people that felt similar. This is what you're going to have to figure out for yourself. She's making an incredibly conscious move because in the middle of the battle, she is not looking at the other person, which it was about before that. She's actually turning her attention back to herself. This is what I did with Natalia, right? Said, just turn it back to you. How do you make sure that you're okay, regardless of if mom is nervous or anxious, regardless if the sisters are accepting or complying or in agreement, right? Turn it back to her. Peggy's saying, this is the direction I keep giving myself. So Peggy, gold star to you. How did you come to that shift?
I feel the heat in my body. So
Got
there's
it.
like a warning, like, okay. Or I feel the door shut and then I'm like, oh, here we are. And so it's usually breath work.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So this is for everybody. When you are knowing that they either become, yes, Mindy, you'll get the replay. You are knowing that they are becoming the enemy, or you know that you are turning into the doormat and you're just complying, right? Whether it's you're losing respect for them or you're losing respect for yourself. The antidote here is to look at yourself compassionately, to say, what is it that I need? And what was brilliant about that question is that it was predicated on a moment of awareness. And this is what is, I believe, some of the most challenging parts of this. When you're in the middle of battle, can you realize that you're in the battle? Most people have a difficult time doing that, but we can't change ourselves off of autopilot if we don't bring a level of awareness. So what Peggy talked about is she notices that her heat goes up. She notices that she has this mental image of he's closing the door on her. And I think, yeah, shutting the door, right? And so what I want everybody else to think about is, in that heated argument, when or what would you need to pay attention to that would tell you that you are now seeing the other person as the opponent? What's your physiological or mental flag or indicator that says, hey, wake up? You're in the middle of a fake battle that you've created. Peggy's is body heat and a thought of the door is closing. He's closing the door. If you've noticing one for yourself, I want you to type it into the chat. What is the thing that you will want to watch for that says, oh shit, this is that thing that Lindon was talking about in the masterclass. I just noticed it. I'm noticing my hands are sweating. I'm noticing that my armpits are sweating. I'm noticing that I'm not talking anymore when I was talking. I'm noticing that I'm actually starting to shrink physically in my chair or something. I'm actually getting smaller. Michelle, heart racing. Perfect. Heat in your belly. Oh, nice. Anger and want to fight. Yeah. Ellen, I've seen that in you. And maybe some of it was at me. That's great. I get it. I got it. Jamie, feeling flushed, red, suddenly super self-conscious. Okay, so it feels like eyes are on you. Things are being watched. Love that. What else? Come on, everybody. Come on, Katie. What do you see? Come on, Cameron. What do you see? Who's going to get points? Is it Cameron? Guys, if you didn't know that I said earlier, Cameron and Katie are mother and sister. This is super cute.
I just wanted to be clear too about the stonewalling. I was nodding because I kept thinking stonewalling, stonewalling. And then you said the John Gottman Four Horsemen reference.
Very good. Nice.
Okay. So Cam, things are okay.
Yeah, but she also just got a point because she pulled out Gottman's four horses of the apocalypse. So she got like at least a point and a half. Cameron, you're still 0.
He gets
But
that.
he did okay. He right feeling insecure, but that's such a blank, broad statement. What does that mean? What does feeling insecure mean? What would we see you do? What would we internally think of, like, what's the Pixar movie? Inside Out. What would it look like inside? Jaw gets tight. Sharon, perfect. Yep. What else? Anybody else? Come on. Does anybody not know what they should be paying attention to? Anybody drawing a blank on my question? Because if we don't know what we're catching, then we are on autopilot and the destination is preset, folks. What do you got, Debbie? What do you need to watch for? Yeah, be careful with turning on your video camera.
No, heart rate. But what's the difference between, question backwards, what's the difference between just a normal like stress response to what you're kind of going towards?
Very interesting. You actually assume something in your statement. If you are working with somebody and you have mutual respect and mutual purpose, there probably won't be a stress response. If anything, it would be maybe excitement, but you wouldn't see it as stress.
Good point.
So that's the question is, if you have a stress response, what's your typical stress response? Right?
Yeah.
Mine, I get sweaty and my mouth goes dry. And I know that if I'm doing that with Cassie, I'm thinking she's an idiot. She's off. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And all of a sudden, if I continue down that path, we're lost, right? we're lost. She has to come to become such a higher level of consciousness to override my base primal instincts to get me out of it. Otherwise, if we're on the same wavelength, we are lost. Okay, so everybody's got that. So now back to you, Peggy. You have built a level of awareness that I want everybody, what would Peggy do? I want everybody to have their own level of awareness of when this happens within my body, when this happens up in my brain and I start thinking these things, this tells me that I'm off. Peggy, you feel heat and you have this thought of the door is shutting. Now, I am sure that at some point, even though you do the breath work, you think these things, you have this moment of awareness, there's times that you still go off track.
Oh, yeah. That's
right. Okay. So the question for you is, nice, Ron, you get quiet. Perfect. The question for you is, what is it that you are holding on to? What is it that you are protecting when you do go off? This is the question for everybody.
I know I don't feel safe.
You don't feel safe.
I don't feel safe, and it'd be survival because it's finances. And I need information to figure out how to be safe.
Got it. Got it. Yours goes to a sense of safety. I think that's great. And we've had conversations about that, even in regards to the financials. So I get what you're saying. That's perfect. If we get a moment of awareness that our body is starting to react, and if we can make the connection that Peggy just made, that would be per each individual. So yours may not be a feeling of safety. Hers has this feeling of safety, especially in regards to finances. If you can know what it is that you are protecting, then you know how to give yourself the compassion and bring yourself back online to consciousness. If you don't know, then you will be continuing to fight for something that is a false hope. It is a false premise in the argument. You guys are then fighting on about two different things, and we are missing. They don't understand me. I don't understand them. Why can't they do this? Fine, I'm wrong. I'll just acquiesce. Whatever your go-to is. If you can't C, A, catch yourself, B, know what you're catching that is feeling threatened, we've got no conversation to have. And there can be no feeling of self-respect. And remember, self-respect is the foundation for respect for the other, which creates the mutual respect, which is needed in order to have a mutual purpose. If we can respect one another and we have a mutual purpose or goal, don't you think that we could pretty much solve all of the world's problems? Let alone the ones that are in the four walls of our house? I mean, it's that simple, folks. If we lose respect for ourselves and therefore we start to lose respect for the other, it's gone. We can't do it. We can do it by show, where it is disingenuous and we feel some sense of resentment or belittlement or something less than. And even though the outcome may come to some fruition that we said that we wanted, we don't feel good. And if that's there, you either get to live in a world filled with an ongoing upset within yourself that you just have to swallow, or that gets built up and at some point is let out. That's the fight that happens when you didn't even realize why you're fighting. Right? That's the no, Tuesdays are Taco Tuesdays, and you just said we're going to get Italian food, and now we're having a argument yelling match and we're stonewalling each other. We are not having the conversation that we need to have. Why? Because other things weren't addressed earlier on. Make sense? Peggy, beautiful. I'm going to give you another gold star because that was wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, I want to hear one more. Who else? What else do we got? Carol.
Yes. I have been getting a lot of you don't respect me from other people. I've been getting in a lot of fights lately. My oldest friend in the world, I met him in 4th grade, has been a Zen Buddhist for 24 years. And if this is what Zen Buddhism is like, I don't want anything to do with it. So he always, and every time I point out to him all the ways in which he doesn't act like a Zen Buddhist, he'll say, well, that's why they call it a practice. But he's been in it for 24 years. And so I start out loving him because he's my oldest, dearest friend, but not respecting him at all. Because he's full of shit about the way he behaves with women, the way he behaves in life, his opinionated nature. And so I can't get through conversations with him.
So you start out even before the conversation without a respect for him because of the way that he lives his life.
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready for the jagged little pill of truth, Carol?
Yeah. I wouldn't be here if I was, and I wouldn't be in productive learning if I wasn't.
Amen to that. And you're going to get a heavy dose of that at the women's retreat in a couple of weeks from Cassie, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that the rest of these participants, let's see if we can figure this out. She walks in before the conversation has begun without a respect for him. What does that tell us?
We're bound to fail. We're bound to get into it.
Beautiful. Yep. Unmute yourself. I want to hear. What do we think? Based on what we just talked about over the last hour, what does that tell us?
There's a lack of mutual
Respect for
intent.
herself.
Go ahead, Diana, and then I want to hear the other person.
Lack of mutual intent on a conversation or whatever they're going to be doing.
Beautiful. I would agree. Okay, what else? Somebody else?
And somewhere she's not respecting herself.
Michelle, the freaking trainer, coming in with the trainer comment. I don't even know if I should give you a point. I should give you a point.
Come on, man.
Give you a point for that. I'll give you a point for that. Yeah. Carol, you don't respect yourself. Turn all of that communication about him to you. Your hard opinions, the way you treat people, the way you do certain things. There is some truth in that you are disregarding about yourself. And when you do that, you don't like you. You still do it, but you don't like you for doing it. And what that means is anytime you see that out in the world, you're angered by it. There's less compassion you have for yourself, and therefore you can't give it to anybody else. This is the question I think that is fascinating for some people, especially, I think, Natalia, yours was similar, though we went down a little bit different of a path. If you find yourself, even before the conversation, already ruminating, already gearing up for battle, you know that it actually has little to do with them. It has more to do with you based on what we've just talked about. It doesn't feel that way and it doesn't appear that way on the surface. But again, if you respect yourself and if you value yourself, have your own personal self-compassion, as the other people do whatever ridiculous things that they do, brilliant things that they do, silly things that they do, you can look at them and still think, they're living their life. They're doing their thing. I don't think it's the best thing for them, but I'm okay. They may be okay. That's up to them. There's a compassion and an empathy that you can feel. But if you don't have that for yourself, you're shot. You're shot. So I think Michelle was spot on. The way in which you think about somebody else, if you don't respect what they are doing, you don't respect the values or the behaviors or the attitudes that they have, then all of a sudden you try to have a conversation on that foundation, you're lost. It's all the bullet's been fired. The paint is out of the tube. Or as my dad likes to say, you can't put a fart back in. How does that land, Carol?
Years.
Which I think is a healthy response, because I think what you just feel is some version of compassion and sadness, which means that we're starting to realize who we are and how we've shown up. And if we don't do that, then again, we can't have this self-respect. So in our workshops, as many of you know, once you start to see yourself, you can have a flood of emotions, good, bad, down, left, right, up, whatever it is, because there is a recognition about the way in which you've been functioning, the beliefs you've been functioning out of. Even when you think that you want this and you're functioning in this direction, that divergent path, that difference has a lot of emotional charge to then swallow. But that's necessary in order for us to create some extraordinary results, right? Carol, you've been doing it for years. Peggy, you've been doing it for decades, right? Diana, years. Some of these people that are in our workshops have been doing this. And if you look at their lives, in some areas of their lives, they are phenomenal people, phenomenal people. And just like everybody else, in other areas of their life, they have their own fearful, limiting beliefs based on learned assumptions. And that's what we're dissecting. We're dissecting those learned beliefs or thoughts that came upon us innocently, naively, and then we started to function out of those going forward, and then we never challenged them. And now I want to challenge the fuck out of them. Maybe you're not supposed to say that one. The hell out of them. I'm getting canceled before I've even made it big, guys. Here we go. Whatever. Okay, very good. Kenneth Leary, withdraw, shrink, turn invisible. Perfect. Nice. Nice, Kenneth. Exactly. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody had a little popper insight or thought question from that?
That I'm like, this is good stuff, Lyndon. You got me all stirred up.
Got me all hot and bothered.
That just like I just had a big insight on that because what I was thinking about was a common argument I had with my ex, and I'm realizing that I went into it not respecting him, and I'm seeing where the lack of respect for myself was really like not respecting myself for actually being in this fucking relationship.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that doesn't meet my needs. And like here I am again trying to get a need met. And like I knew he wasn't going to be able to do it. And so like already not respecting him, but the lack of self-respect is that I've been continuing in this self-betrayal for so long.
It's so perfect because what that shows you is if the foundation is unstable, it doesn't matter how magnificently high it goes. We are playing a game as how little can I lose because I will lose. And then it becomes this weird business transaction and risk, but very little reward.
Yeah. And I think the protection it's like, so what are you protecting? And it's like some sense of security, right? Like,
yes, a false, but some sense of
well,
security.
very false security of like, yeah, just not losing the relationship or not being okay on my own or just not being abandoned, right? So there's something there about security.
Beautiful. Michelle, nice. Very, very nice. Katie, what do you got?
So to piggyback on that, the answer to this with some people that you continually get in these situations with is the answer that you always have to get to this level of respect, or some people not worth getting there, or some people just not worth respecting?
That's a fascinating question. Really, really interesting question. I guess you would have to weigh that with what's the purpose you have the relationship in the first place, right? That's what part of what Michelle was talking about. So in certain relationships at work, and we don't have a choice of if they're on or off, we better fucking find it, folks, because we're in the relationship and it's somebody else that says they're fired or they're hired or whatever, right? In personal, intimate relationships, you have much more of the choice of if I want to continue to engage. That's going to be much more contextual. And with all of that said, I would also say, if you want to go for the height of heights of extraordinary life, then you will go for the as deep of respect as one can for themselves. and then they are invincible to the world. It does not matter who they interact with. They can have a sense of peace within themselves, even when the world outside them is chaotic. This is what I believe of the Nelson Mandelas who can stay in a prison unjustly for 27 years and come out and just beam compassion. This is what I think Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. must have felt when his family was attacked at their homes. And what did he do? Continue to be peaceful. You have to assume that these people had such a sense of self-respect for who they were and their values that the world was essentially unable to touch them. And I think that's capable of everybody. It's not like these were just extraordinary people that were gifted genetically and hey, good for them. I do think that on some physical behaviors, right? Like nobody's going to be the Michael Jordan until there's another Michael Jordan. But in regards to people's emotional and mental well-being, that is 100% in your hand. So I give you two answers. One, yeah, totally contextual. You'll have to make that debate. And then overall, if I take away all context, well, how dedicated are you to creating a feeling of comfort, safety, achievement, pride, and joy for who you are in all contexts of life? That's the game I play, by the way. So I'm like 100% for that. I want to be able to dance with the devil and think, you're an idiot, but I can respect you. You know. Ron, what do you got?
Yeah, I have conversations with my sister and brother, and it's like they don't, I guess I try and build myself up, and when I have conversations with them, they're just kind of, stuck in their life, and I want to kind of bring them up. And so I
There we
look
go.
at it as,
Got it. We don't even have to go further. Did you guys hear it? Come on. Did you hear
yeah,
it?
I just want them to build up. I want to use them to build up my own self-respect.
Oh, fascinating. So you need them to become better so that you can have your own sense of self-respect. Shit.
Build
Son.
up yeah.
Oh,
Build
God.
myself up.
God, that's betting on the horse when you know they're going to lose, right? Like, keepers. Yeah. So fantastic observation.
What were you going to say?
No, you nailed it. When you start to notice that you're wanting them to be different than they are, then the conversation goes to what Peggy did. How do I bring compassion to me? I've lost respect for them, which is not actually about them. All that is for me to realize that's a mirror for me to go back to me. Some of the people that felt less respect for themselves, that they felt like they just would allow people to walk over, their questions already to themselves. How do I give myself some more compassion? They're right there. The people that think the other is to blame, I'm in that camp. I have to do a step before that to say, I know it's not about Cassie. I know it's not about my staff. I know it's not about my neighbor. It is about me. How is it about me? Make sense?
Yep.
That's the conversation. That's the conversation. Okay, let me bring this back over here. So, in review, to conclude with what we just talked about, to have great achievements, we need to have healthy disagreements. To have healthy disagreements means we regularly enter into situations with high stakes, high emotions, and differing of opinions. So we actually have to have that in order to create greatness. Because if we don't, remember, we fall privy to all of those other pitfalls, like 17 different pitfalls that I threw up on the board, right? Now, the ability to maintain mutual purpose and thus keep us on track with achieving something together is done through maintaining mutual respect. And mutual respect means respecting me and respecting the other person, but each of us falters at one point or another when we lose respect for ourselves. That's the core and the crux of it. It all boils down to not respecting yourself. Each of us now has a little bit more insight into where do I start to falter? Where do I start to not believe in myself? Some of us are going to watch and pay attention to the fact that they're blaming the outside world and whatever those physiological responses are and or those mental thoughts are, right? We heard some that was like, you felt heat, right? The door shutting. We saw some other ones, sense of betrayal, you shrink, you pull away. We've got to watch for those, and those people that were blaming the outside world, we have to watch when we blame. And then we've got to turn the focus back to ourselves for some self-compassion. What is it that I need right now? That is, and the answer has nothing to do with the outside world. Okay? The other group is just looking to have a sense of self-respect for them, for themselves, just asking, what is it that I need right now that I don't need from the outside world? They don't have to do that second step that I have to do, which is turn the dialogue back to me. In order to have those kinds of healthy dialogues and conversations, all of this needs to ensue. Healthy disagreements, mutual purpose, mutual respect, and thus the base and foundation of respecting myself. You now have some ideas as to what your triggers are and what some of the self-limiting beliefs are. And this is where you've got to take it to, do you want to do the work to dismantle it? Just building a sense of awareness doesn't dismantle it. Building the sense of awareness means that I realize that I've cocked my gun and I'm aiming at them and I'm shooting, but I'm still going to keep doing it. That's all awareness does for you, but at least it tells you that. Doing the work on it is where you can really start to make a shift or change. So what's the different kind of work that we can do? Like I had mentioned before, we've continued to put together exceptional workshop, and one of those is called Path of Dialogue, and we're now making it into a format that anyone can take straight from your house. The Path of Dialogue is going to be done over 4 sessions of 3 hours each, which I believe is just enough time to dig into it, but not enough time to get the heck bored, super bored, and want the heck out of it, right? You can do it from your computer, and it's done over a handful of weeks. Our senior trainer, Betty Jo Waxman, who many of you know, will be leading this starting in October. And I expect that you walk out of there with your mind blown as the insights about yourself come in a way where communication, relationships, and conversations all meld together. What we talked about here is maybe not even the tip of the iceberg. What we talked about here is a general understanding of what makes a relationship healthy, what makes a dialogue and a conversation healthy. In this workshop, you're going to go much more in depth into where we ended, start really with where we ended with Peggy and a couple of you. Now, as I like to do, simply for being on this masterclass, I am offering free coaching session with any of you by clicking on that link, or just email me directly at lindona@productivelearning.com. We will do a 30-minute coaching session. We will dive into whatever you got out of this and see if we can take it to the next step. Along with that, if you sign up for the Path of Dialogue, I'll add in another free bonus coaching call with me. That's another value of $350. And so that we can have time between now and the October session, the first session of that October Path of Dialogue, for you to do some work on whether it's communication, relationships, or something else. I'm happy to do that. But I'd love for you to join in with Betty Jo on the Path of Dialogue workshop. Lastly, please share this masterclass and any or of the other masterclasses with your colleagues, with your family, with your friends. My personal goal is to lessen the unnecessary suffering in the world. And I've come to realize that my way to do that is to help people see themselves more clearly for who they are. And what I believe that it is that they are bright, unique, and ever valuable individuals that can manifest truly extraordinary things. So if you're not creating something extraordinary, shoot me an email. Let's get on. Let's go, baby. All right. Thank you all very much. I am happy to have worked with you all, and I hope that I get dozens of emails so I can coach with you and talk with you a little bit later. Good job, everybody.